very much. Good morning again, everybody. One of the themes I picked up from the Minister, the Chair, and previous speakers is the importance of ambition in tackling the problems that face us and seizing the opportunities. And my talk's about EPC and value, but I'll describe it in the context of what I think is a very ambitious programme being promoted by the Hub to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from all 1.25 million homes in Wales in the next 25 years. This sort of data, I think, will be familiar to you. It's the UK proportions. The similar figures apply to Wales. The point is our homes consume a significant amount of energy, a really significant chunk of energy, and need to be tackled in a big way. And they're responsible for maybe 25% of our greenhouse gas emissions. The trajectory against the ambitions of the Climate Change Act actually looks quite promising if you look at the data so far, but we must remember that a lot of the reduction in emissions have come from economic downturn, from the conversion from coal to gas in our power stations, and from the offshoring of energy-intensive industries. And if, as Kevin says, the dash for shale is now going to start pumping CO2 back into the emissions from our power stations and our homes, the challenge is pretty substantial, as you can see. This is Welsh greenhouse gas emissions from the residential sector. The target for 80% is on the left, and the target is the green line across the bottom. Over the last 20 years, of the 80%, we have achieved about 25%, but quite a lot of that is because of effects that are nothing to do with the homes themselves, but the intensity of the supply going into the homes. We've now got to do rather better than twice as well as we have done, and it's now down to the homes to deliver that. So the challenge is pretty substantial. Welsh Government ambition is a 3% year-on-year reduction in emissions from homes. Over the last 20 years, we've achieved 1.5% year-on-year. So we've got a very, very long way to go. Now the Hub is promoting this ambitious programme. We have to think large scale, we have to think ambitious, I think, in order to achieve anything. We can't do it piecemeal with a home here and a home there. Even programmes like Arbed, fabulous as they are, only scratch the surface of the problem, though we can learn valuable lessons from them and roll them out at greater scale. The Hub's thinking is described in more detail in Chapter 2 of something called the Hot Book, which was launched by the Shadow Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, Caroline Flint, at the Labour Party conference in September. It's mercifully a brief chapter, so I would recommend it to you if you want to learn more about the thinking. It's based on 4 key premises, which I'm going to list in the following slides. We've got 1.25 million homes in Wales and 25 years roughly in which to do it. That's 50,000 homes a year. Now, Arbed 2, which is large scale and ambitious and excellent, is tackling perhaps 5,000 homes in 4 years. So that's 1,250 homes a year. So we have to do 40 times better than that for the next 25 years. It's a huge, huge task. The way we go about it at the moment is too expensive, and that is a major obstacle. We have to find ways of driving down cost. We can look around and we see there are ways of doing that. The supermarkets do it all the time by buying at cost, by buying at large scale. And in other sectors, the Global Alliance for Vaccine and Immunisation buys vaccines at huge scale because it aggregates the demand from poor countries in order to do so. So those techniques are available to us if we choose to use them. And this, I think, for the home owners is going to be a very powerful incentive. It's where I think the Green Deal misses a trick because of its focus on operating costs. I think if we can establish a positive and clear and accepted link between energy efficiency and value, and if we can stop talking about energy efficiency and talk about it in terms of home improvement, then the logic for doing so is very clear. If I'm going to spend £5,000 on my house, but it's going to improve its value by at least £5,000, oh, and by the way, I'm going to drop my energy bills a bit, that's something I'm going to think about quite seriously. Now, very, very large scale action. There are always people who say, well, we can't do it, we've lost the will, we don't know, we don't. It's too big a problem, we really can't do that. Not that long ago, the UK converted from town gas to North Sea gas, 1960s and 1970s. For a period of almost 15 years, we converted 1 million houses a year. Huge scale operation, and we just did it. Nobody made a fuss, it had to be done, and we got on as a nation and did it. So I think we've probably not collectively lost that ability to act at scale if we choose to do so. And the point about a large-scale retrofit program properly designed is it can deliver all sorts of other benefits which tick all sorts of boxes across all sorts of agendas as well. On the reduction side, well, we can drop energy demand, that must be good. Drop greenhouse gas emissions, that's absolutely critical. We can use it to tackle fuel poverty at scale. I think an earlier speaker said 29% of Welsh homes suffer from fuel poverty. I mean, you know, this is the 21st century. That's just disgraceful. Demand on the NHS. There was a report by Age Concern a few months back. Cold homes cost the NHS in the UK £1.4 billion a year. So that's the Welsh NHS, £70 million a year. Completely wasted because people's homes are cold. If we can tackle the cold homes, people will have a better quality of life and the demand on the NHS will drop. That must be good. Unemployment will reduce because this will generate the need for people to do work across our homes. And on the increased side, we will have increased economic activity. The multiplier effect will ripple through the economy. Treasury will get greater VAT receipts, which means it can pump more money across to the devolved administrations. We'll have improved energy security, improved global reputation, and one of the earlier speakers talked about global green business opportunities. So its benefits are much wider than just tackling climate change, important though that clearly is. We need standard solutions that we can roll out at scale. That's absolutely critical to it. And part of that work is that the Hub is now doing. We've just started a collaboration with the Arbed 2 team. The focus is on improving the performance of solid wall properties, both to reduce their energy consumption, but also avoid some of the unintended consequences that have been noted in other schemes, like summertime overheating, poor indoor air quality, and mold. It's a measure and monitor exercise. We're going to measure the performance of the homes before the work is done, temperature, humidity, energy consumption. The work will then be done and we will measure again for a couple of years, I guess, to see what changes it makes. We'll also obviously engage with the occupants while we're doing that. And then we will look at what we've learned and draw some lessons from that, see if we can establish a standard approach which can be rolled out across the most common property types in Wales. Because if we can, that's one of the keys to procuring a standard approach that can be rolled out. In parallel with that, Colin King of the BRE, we're sponsoring him, and he's well underway to devise an app which image is a little bit dodgy at the moment. It won't quite look as bad as that, but it'll help home owners who have solid wall properties just think through and make some sensible choices about what it is they're going to do to their properties. At the moment, the guidance is all over the place and sometimes contradictory. It brings it together so that expert guidance is available, either for homeowners or for builders, on what you might do. And it'll also point out some of the risks and pitfalls and direct you towards further guidance on how you might avoid those. Another strand of our work is on green mortgages. The logic is pretty simple. If you've got a home with low energy bills, then you ought to have a little bit more money available to spend on your mortgage. So we're going to begin by seeing if there is a link between EPCs and energy performance of homes, energy costs in homes. We're hoping, we don't know, this is made up data. We're hoping that we will get data something like that shows for the properties surveyed a range of energy consumptions in pounds per square metre per year, which is low at the AB end and higher at the EF end, from which some kind of credible trend line can be deduced. We will, if that data is there, if it's not, obviously we'll ruthlessly suppress the data, but if it is there, we'll take it to the Financial Services Authority, we'll take it to the Federation of Mortgage Lenders, we'll take it to the mortgage companies and say, look, the data seems to suggest that there is this linkage between energy efficiency and energy performance. Are you interested sufficiently to sponsor further studies in this area to see if you can then factor that into your mortgage calculations so that you're prepared to lend more against A and B rated properties than you would against comparable E and F rated properties? Or maybe you'd like to lend less against the poorer rated properties and hold what you're lending against the higher rated properties. So that's another strand of our work. And then to the core of this talk, the fourth premise, the one that homeowners would be interested in seeing a link between energy efficiency and value, because that's particularly what matters, because people do improvements to their homes, not only to make them nicer to live in, but also to defend or enhance their value. The world is starting to see such linkages occur. First of all, in the commercial property sector, and further overseas, but now the data is beginning to appear in Europe and the UK and moving into the domestic sector as well. This is data from commercial property in Australia for Green Star, Reed, BREEAM or LEED, but 2 years ago in the commercial property markets in Sydney and Melbourne, 4-star rated properties consistently outperformed the rest of the market in terms of capital and income returns. Recent data suggests it's now moving to 5-star properties as the costs of creating those drops as people get more experienced in building to the higher standards. So commercial property market in Australia heading that way. This is research by Maastricht University into real estate investment trusts in the USA, where they found not only correlation, but they believe causation between the greenness of a portfolio and its improved financial operating performance. Also, such portfolios were less at risk from shocks to their share price from things like energy price hikes or new environmental legislation. So there's 2 commercial sector indicators of a growing link between energy efficiency and value. Then we come to April last year, and this report from the EU looked at 5 Western European countries, including the UK, and as it says there, overwhelmingly points to energy efficiency being rewarded by the market. You can't hope for much clearer than that. But people say, what about the UK? You know that. Well, the answer is this almost completely anonymous report that DEC put out in June 2013. They commissioned a team from Reading University and the University of Cambridge to study 325 homes in England that had been sold twice during the last 15 years. And then they did a hedonic regression analysis of the data, and they established that pretty reliably, the greater the EPC, the better the EPC, the higher the sales price per square metre, controlling for other variables. And they interestingly found that that effect is more marked the further you get away from London, and it's more marked in terrace properties and semi-detached and apartments than it is in semi-detached and detached properties. So that's encouraging for Wales. The Hub has now contacted the report authors, and just before Christmas, with the blessing of Welsh Government, we've now commissioned them to extend their study to Wales. They should report later on in the spring to us. We hope that it will show a very similar set of results for Wales. If it does, we will then take that to estate agents, surveyors, valuers across Wales and say to them, please, you've now got the evidence that you need. Factor this into the advice that you give homeowners and buyers. Encourage people to buy higher rated properties because they will defend and enhance and maintain their value better than lower rated properties. So this is back to the beginning. This is what we need. Now, the illustration there is the Wales Infrastructure Investment Plan, the projects in the pipeline. It recognises large-scale retrofit as strategic infrastructure. Both Arbed and Nest are listed in there. So my plea to Welsh Government, I guess, and I've been taking this to ministers and will continue to do so, is take the programme that the Hub is proposing seriously, have it rigorously appraised, use a Treasury Green Book appraisal, because I think the results will show that such a programme is good for Wales, it's good for Welsh economy, it's good for Welsh environment, and it's good for Welsh society, and I very much hope Welsh Government will support it and encourage it. Thank you very much.